What's going on, everybody? My name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and welcome to the Verified AMA, which means you ask questions and I answer them. And I go live every single day that the markets are open from 12:30 to 1:15. If you're watching for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to give Verified Investing a follow and subscription on YouTube. But yeah, let me show you guys how to ask questions. So in order to ask questions, you can ask them by two ways. You can either visit the verifiedinvesting.com homepage or scan this QR code right here to submit your questions. You can ask me anything you want. You can ask me about sports. You can ask me about verified investing services, or most popular is asking me about charts, right? I'll go over any charts you want me to go over, and just know that I will answer these questions in order of which they were submitted. So the sooner your question comes in, the higher likelihood chance I will answer your question. And again, this is until 1:15, and this is something I do every day from 12:30 to 1:15. I just got back from vacation, like 2 a.m. this morning. Took a trip to Maine, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for all of you who gave me your recommendations. Yeah, Derek. Derek says, "How is the Boston chowder?" Okay, so I went to Maine. I flew into Boston, went to Maine. I had lobster, specifically lobster rolls. I think every single meal. I'm not even kidding. I counted, and I think I ate 10 lobster rolls while I was there. And it was amazing. Never been too much of a lobster guy, but really did enjoy that. All right, let me drink some water and we'll hop into these questions. But yeah, Derek, had a great time. All right, let me share my screen right here. Let's see what we got going on. All right. So for this first question, Nathan says, "Good morning. What's up, Nathan? I see Bitcoin is up." Bitcoin is indeed up, and SRPT is way down. Any thoughts you have on those are very welcome, but my main question is Tesla. All right, let's take a look at SRPT. Sarepta Therapeutics. Again, this is a smaller company, under 1.5 billion market cap. Not something I've previously really traded before, but as you can see, I have a really great level of support that I did say previously I'd be interested in buying at around $11.55. SRPT is actually up today. I mean, it was down, right? SRPT was all the way down 8%, but has actually gone positive 5% for the day. My level of resistance right here at this just under $17. You have all these pivot lows, previous bottom, as well as the opening price on the 18th of July. Next question is on Bitcoin. What I see on Bitcoin, so I am bearish on Bitcoin. As you guys know, if you've been here previously, I was bullish on Bitcoin going into this inverse head and shoulders, down sloping trend line. Of course, hit that measured move, hit all the way up to this trend line. And my level of resistance for Bitcoin is currently right here around 124. This sideways consolidation, though, is actually bearish for me. So you see I drew this previously, and this is what I anticipate happening in Bitcoin. Down move, squiggle, 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 sideways consolidation, and then a down move. Support would be down here just under $108,000. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at Tesla. And again, guys, for those of you just watching for the first time, I go live to answer any questions you guys have every single day between 12:30 and 1:15. Make sure to give Verified Investing a subscription on YouTube to see some exclusive content. And if you want to ask questions, you can do so on the Verified Investing homepage or by scanning the QR code down below. Let's keep going. So let's take a look at Tesla. I sold at 337, okay, for a nice gain. But where or when or if should I buy back in? So if you asked me, okay, on Tesla, and that was a great move up. Let me just remove some of these drawings on the chart, right? This was a beautiful move. You sold near the top, so congratulations to you, Nathan, for about a 16.5% gain. Now, your question is, where should I buy back in if I want to buy back in? Well, if you think Tesla is going higher, there's a couple things Tesla needs to get over. First off is this downsloping trend line. If Tesla can get above this downsloping trend line, yes, it has further upside, but something to contend with. Again, Tesla's gone up basically 17% in a straight line, right? Basically since, Trump and Elon started feuding for the second time. This was the first argument. This is the second argument. So also with the EV changes to EV mandates. So on Tesla, I have this upsloping trend line. Now, I anticipate Tesla to potentially sideways, consolidate, and head lower. For me, my first level of re-entering Tesla would be this level around 295.67. Now, that's quite a bit lower, about 10% lower. But the reason why that I'm cautious and entering it along on Tesla too soon is because look at the S&P. S&P is starting to show some sort of weakness, right? You see this basic move straight up since Liberation Day, about 30% up. We're seeing some weakness now. Should this weakness continue and roll over, I expect the rest of the markets to roll over as well, including Tesla. So I wouldn't want to get caught into that. Of course, if you just want to get in, you could just go long and put a stop, right? Put a stop out level right here on 318.82. The levels of support on Tesla, and albeit these might be smaller levels of support, just because they're so close. There's 319 gap fill, and you have another one just under $311. Sarah says, good to see you, Lawton. Nice to see you too. Clint says, please look at CMG. Let's go. Chipotle. I love Chipotle. If I draw a trend line from April 7th, okay. April 7th lows, Liberation Day lows, everyone's favorite, to the June 2nd lows, okay. Would that be a valid trend line? If so, there's the fifth hit, breaking the line, breaking 15. Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is bearish. Yep, this is still valid. You could draw an additional one, kind of like here. But yeah, this is bearish for Chipotle, definitely. And here's kind of how to play this, right? What we could be seeing is the beginning formation of, what is it? A head and shoulders pattern, right? Potentially the beginning of a head and shoulders pattern, particularly if this goes higher. So I'm going to do a quick, where's my little clip? Oh, okay. This is one of today's teachable moments. Okay, when you look at this Chipotle, when you look at this Chipotle chart, you can see this breaking this down upsloping trend line means it's bearish. But this is what's most important to look at as a trader. You need to look at all different possibilities. And for me, I see the potential formation of a head and shoulders pattern. Now, do I get in right now? No. I'm going to wait to see if the pattern forms. Let's say, right, for the sake of this conversation, that Chipotle doesn't go any lower today or tomorrow. In fact, let's say that it gets a bounce, right? Let's say it gets a bounce tomorrow. It continues higher, even if it's a smaller shoulder, something like this. This head and shoulders is still valid, right? If it doesn't go any lower, then you're looking at a measured move down about 15%. Additionally, right, for something like this head and shoulders pattern, even if Chipotle goes lower, is still going to be valid until and up to the flat line. If it comes, let's say the shoulder comes all the way down to the flat line and then makes another shoulder, it's still valid because it's basically horizontal. But as soon as it starts dipping down and goes from an upsloping to a flat to now a downsloping trend line, that is no longer a valid head and shoulders pattern. All right. But let's say you're just not worried about the head and shoulders pattern and you just want to get in. You see this beautiful trend line break, you want to get in. Okay. I don't blame you, right? You want to get in that move. Let's say you start a short position right here, right? Well, what would I do? What I would do is if I got into this short here, I would put a stop loss here about 5% higher, right? I'm going to do that because that means that this trend line break isn't really valid anymore. And the main purpose for me getting into this trade is no longer valid. There's no point in me getting into this trade. Okay. So if it comes back up, yeah, I'll stop out somewhere here. And I could look for a move down to, I could target this pivot low here, or I could pivot, any number of levels down here, right? Look for a profit. Let's say if our stop loss is, let's say we put our stop loss 5% out of the money. Let's say we take profits here around 10% of the money, right? This is a pretty good risk to reward ratio. I'm risking 5% to potentially gain 10%, right? Additionally, let's say I stop out, right? Let's say that it does create this head and shoulders pattern and goes up and stops me out, right? No problem. What I can do then, what I can do then is elect to, let's say it goes like this. I could just re-enter on a break of the neckline of the head and shoulders pattern. Okay. So there's a couple ways that you can play this, but yeah, it's definitely a valid break. Brian says, can you look at SMCI? Pullback buying opportunity? Yeah, absolutely. There's a level right here that I think 5% lower that SMCI could get a bounce. Something to be wary of, though, and as you see that I have 50 million of these alerts set, right, is that SMCI has this beautiful upsloping trend line. Now, should that trend line break, you're expecting more downside, but this is just basically the first level of support I have around $47, right? But let's say this comes down and falls, you might fall down to this gap fill. There's another one up here, around 18 or so percent. McBride says, projection for gold for the next 12 to 24 months. If I was a genie, if I had a crystal ball, if I knew what was going to happen, I wouldn't be here. I would be sports betting. I'm sports betting anyways. But trust me, I do not have a crystal ball based on my sports betting track record. But for me on gold is kind of a safe haven asset. Gold generally always moves up, right? Especially if we're expecting the markets to come down. Say the stock market crashes, we expect gold to move higher. I think that, generally here at Verified Investing, we're kind of overall bearish on the overall markets, right? On the long term, right? Swings might be different, right? However, we're bearish overall on the markets. So, with that being said, if the markets pull back and fall down significantly, particularly if there's go into recession, the value of gold could continue higher, right? So that would be my analysis, right? That's not analyzing the chart. Looking at the chart itself, gold is breaking up from a downsloping trend line. I believe it's going to make new all-time highs. I'm not, and again, I'm not a genie, right? Fortune teller, but I do my best with the information I have, right? Esther says, hi, dear. What's going on, Esther? Not just technical, but overall information regarding Circle. Anytime AGL. AVGO, no problem. So Circle is, I'm bearish on Circle. I'm actually short Circle from $280, right? I should have taken profits at 170 when I was over $100 per share in the money. But I'm holding this because I think it's coming down to 133. I think it's coming to $60 eventually. I think it's eventually going to fall, but I don't recommend not taking profits, right? Don't do what I do, right? So you have this upsloping trend line falling down, breaking it looks bearish for me. Support, you have this bottom level down here, that 171 could potentially get a bounce there, but if it breaks that, it's likely coming to 133 or lower. As far as AVGO is concerned, I love to help you out if you could give me a little more context. And look at this beautiful red candle on AVGO. You can see that AVGO is kind of breaking, this kind of trend of upsloping trend. If it comes down, breaks below, closes below, confirms, you're likely seeing a move down to around $254. I'm going to try and go a little bit quicker because I see all these questions coming in. Thank you guys so much for your questions. I usually try and get to everyone's questions, but it might be a little more difficult since there's so much of you. But don't worry, I'll be here tomorrow and the day after that. And the day after that as well, because it's a Friday. Okay, Brent says, excited to see Hood showing some cracks. Do you think we get a pullback to the $80 range? For me, my bounce level on Hood is this $91 level. Could it continue lower to around $83? Absolutely. But this $91, $85, and $83 levels are the levels that I am expecting a bounce in Robinhood. Jessica says, good day, Lawton. What's up, Jessica? I hope you're doing well. Say, how about stocks? What are my levels? I'm already long stocks. I love stocks. I trade it every single day. I have an account that's dedicated that only has stocks in it that I'm long. My last order was at $7. I have an order out to buy at $6.80, but this $7.80 level is going to be the level it needs to pierce for moving higher. I'm not going to sell any of my stocks until at least $8 and maybe $8.08. My average right now in my own personal account is $7.98, but I'm extremely bullish on stocks. Okay, David says, hi, Lawton. What's up, David? What are your thoughts on the chart for the company IQ? Yep, got you. Generally bullish on IQ, right? Had this beautiful downsloping trend line you broke out of. Had this secondary trend line that you broke out of, kind of retracing to it, flat for the day. Had a great move up, pulled back a bit, but I'm bullish on IQ. This is like the Chinese Netflix, I believe, but generally bullish on this. Bullish on China in general. Sarah says, in the XLM chart, what would be a good price or support level to buy? So on XLM, this sideways consolidation is actually pretty bullish for me. Looks bullish, some sort of bullish consolidation. Sideways consolidation, could be bull flagging even. For me, you're looking for a place to buy. You think it's going to go higher. Here's what I would recommend, right? On these swing trades, I would be comfortable just entering right here. Let's say we enter right here at 446 cents, right? 46.5 cents, wherever the price is right now. Let's say that we just enter along. Okay, how would I set up my chart to take profits, stop loss, etc., etc.? Well, it depends on how bullish you are on the chart, right? For me, this looks fairly bullish. For me, here's what I would do. I would set up, if you absolutely wanted to get in, I would set up a stop loss and take a loss below 43 cents. So if price were to make a new low, then I would stop out of this, right? You could just enter now. You're risking 7%, not a whole lot, right? As far as profits are concerned, you can either take profits at this high, around 12%, but we're looking for more than that, aren't we? Let's look for some more additional levels. This level up here seems like a great level, around 61 cents. So here's what I would do if I absolutely had to get in right now and set my levels. I would get in right here, put a stop down here. I would take half of my position off of the table at this 52-cent level for a 12% gain, and then look for basically just under 61 cents to take off the rest of my position. Realize I just got a mosquito bite on my hand. Those main bugs don't play around. All right. Derek sent me a chart. Let me take a look at your chart. Okay. Nice. Yeah, it looks great, Derek. Ryan says, thoughts on Zeta. Let's take a look at Zeta. Swing trade for me. My cost is $16. Support and resistance levels during this volatile time. Please and thank you. Absolutely. All right. So let's say your average again is $16. You're not far out of the money, about 70 cents, right? And that's you're about 4.5% out of the money. For me, here's what I would do if I was stuck in that position. For my support level, I would consider adding down here. You have this beautiful gap fill, or you can wait down here. But of course, you have an additional gap fill down here. But these are my 3 levels of support on Zeta. For my take profit exit level, you could consider, of course, you have a high pivot up here. Let's look back on the chart, though. Try and get a fuller picture and around $22. Around 42 and, 19 and 42% higher in general. Again, full disclosure, I've never traded this company before, but I've taken a look at this chart previously. But these are my levels of support. Okay. Luis says, Lawton, thanks for doing this. Of course. Happy to be here. Appreciate it. I took your advice on stocks. My cost basis is 7-11, waiting to exit as you previously suggested. Any other trades that you'd consider exiting about? And of course, listen, great job. Happy that you're that you got in. Could have taken 7.5% on that. So pretty great. So good job so far. Again, I'm going to exit above $8, but feel free to take money anytime you want, right? Even though I'm a pro trader, like if you see a lot of green on your screen and you want to take profits, nobody ever went broke taking a profit. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But any other trades that I'm considering or excited about, I'm generally bearish on Bitcoin right now. So I like this trade, bearish on Bitcoin. But again, this isn't financial advice. I'm just a guy trying to answer some questions, hopefully providing some value to you guys. Nicole says, hey, Lawton, we have a topping tail on Bitcoin. How do you see it impacts the bullish scenario? Topping tail is small comparison to the previous count. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm bearish on Bitcoin. Tony says, hey, Lawton, what's the best way to invest in a crypto directly with an IRA? I couldn't answer that question. I'm not truly sure. You'd have to do some research. Just be careful. Just because that's not something that I'm familiar with. So just be careful when you're doing your own research, though. Adam says, can you go over the way leverage works on Blofin? Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, we trade crypto on a site called Blofin. Love Blofin. They've been a great sponsor for us, but also a great platform. And let me show you how it works. Let me share my screen. So let's say you're here on the Blofin platform. The way it works is, let's say I'm trading in US dollars, right? USDT tether on Bitcoin. Let's say I want to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin. right? But you see here, this is the leverage. I don't know if it's not letting me click it, right? Because I'm not logged in, but this goes all the way up to 150 times. And because I'm using 3 times leverage, the cost of buying $50,000 worth of Bitcoin is only going to cost me about $16.6 thousand dollars. So a third of the cost, right? So that means if I want to buy, let's say I just want to buy 1 Bitcoin, right? Let's say I want to buy 120K. It'll cost me $40,000. It'll cost me $40,000 to buy $120,000 worth of Bitcoin. Now, right, if you lose money though, of course, if you gain money and lose money, everything is amplified by 3 times because you're using 3 times leverage, basically. So let's say you bought it, but Bitcoin goes down by 50%, right? You would essentially be liquidated, right? Because your losses are amplified by 3. But your gains are amplified by 3 as well. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know, and I'll do my best to answer some more. Go a little more. Sarah says, thanks, Lawton. How did you like your Maine trip and Maine lobster? It was amazing. I've never had so much lobster in my life. I love lobster rolls. They're great. Next question. Would your buy setup be for XL? I think I did talk about that, but will XRP retrace back down to the neckline of the inverse head and shoulders? Will it? So you had this beautiful inverse head and shoulders that played out almost perfectly. Now, is it going to retrace to this? I don't know, but it could, right? But you're talking 37% lower to retrace to the neckline of this inverse head and shoulders pattern. For me on XRP, I would wait for a fall, potentially at least down to here, right? Around 17% lower, around just under $3. That'd be the first time I'd potentially be interested in going long XRP. Could it continue running? 100% absolutely. But I don't have an advantage in this markets, right? If I go out to the weekly, it's trading, at all-time highs. I don't really have an advantage. I don't really have an indication of how high it could go, right? Could it continue higher? Absolutely. But will it? My guess is as good as yours. Okay, Christopher says, hi, Lawton. What's up, Christopher? Hope you're doing well. If the Fed starts cutting rates, you see the market starting to go up even more with more money coming into the system. I mean, that's kind of bullish, right? Cutting the rates do kind of assume that, if you cut rates, money's going to flow into the markets, but markets are already at all-time highs. And on top of that, it could be a sell the news event. So likely we could see a pop up, or let's say we get a pop up, and then people get tired and realize, okay, that was it. Move wasn't actually that big, and then would come down. Sandcalp, hope that answers your question, Christopher. Sandcalp says, hey, Lawton, what's up? Sandcalp, pro traders at VI are mostly short in the current market, but I don't have any positions on Tesla. What's your perspective on the short medium term? I did answer this at the beginning of my AMA, but I'd be happy to go over it again. I wouldn't really touch Tesla. I think it could find support. In fact, I'd be a buyer, if anything, under $300. I think, look at it. It's so far down. It's still down. You're talking 33% or so from its all-time highs, despite the rest of the markets at new highs, right? So I'm not going to short Tesla. Tesla's already down. I think it's at a more fair price, right, than the rest of the market. Martin says, hey, Lawton, what's up? Martin, any idea what phase the market is currently in and what sectors or stocks have more bullish potential in the current market conditions? Thanks. Any phase? I'm not sure what you mean by phase. Drew is the expert on market cycles. However, if you're asking about stocks or sectors that I'm more bullish on, I don't have any in particular. I don't. I'm generally more bearish, right, in the overall markets. So I'm not focusing anything. If anything, I think Chinese stocks have a lot of potential to run. I'm fairly bullish on these Chinese stocks. You see this great downsloping trend line on Alibaba. Could go up, retrace, and taking a move higher. I'm anticipating a move above to at least 11% higher, around 134 on Alibaba. So Chinese stocks I'm generally bullish on. We can look at the Hang Seng. Hang Seng is still far down from its highs despite the rest of the markets going up higher. The U.S. markets, excuse me. All right, let's try and get this pivot. All right, I'm just going to pull it like this. Try and pull this pivot. Can break above this beautiful downsloping trend line. Can go higher. It can go higher. Sam says, how do you see SLB and PM to short to midterm? Schlumberger. Again, not familiar with this company. It's not something that I've traded a lot, but on first glance, I could tell you that I'm bullish on it generally because of this nice downtrend that we have. That's up your trend line. Let's see else. I'm sure we have a bunch more of these. Yeah, I think that this has the potential to go significantly higher. Should it get good news? So I guess this is oil and drilling, potentially. But I would say that if you can get above this downsloping trend line, you're looking pretty good on this. The other one was PM. Philip Morris. So Philip Morris, I believe they had earnings today. Yeah, they had earnings this morning. Down off of earnings, had a really nice recovery, right? And if I was day trading this is where I would have gone long, 164. Beautiful gap fill, nice support there. Should this continue lower, my next level of support, 162. It kind of kissed it, so it might not be the best level. You have a nice gap fill over here. Around 154, that could provide a nice bounce to Philip Morris, about 8% lower than its current price. From what I'm familiar with, this isn't a stock that moves a whole lot off of earnings. Yeah, around 3% off of earnings. So this is actually a pretty large move on Philip Morris, and that's why. Grady says, can you take a look at DYDX for me? Sure. This isn't a crypto coin I've traded before, both on the daily and 4-hour charts. Would you say hold off for now and enter at a lower level? I have never traded this coin before, have to tell you. Again, I'm not saying that just to be annoying. I'm telling you that because it's important that you know the context in which I'm looking this from, purely from a chart level. I have this beautiful downsloping trend line. Does look like it wants to go higher, but unfortunately, you did have this huge run up, basically 74% higher. If you wanted to start a position, I wouldn't blame you. A small position, right? And I would, and really, really small. I'm talking really small, and stop out somewhere. I'd give myself a stop out down here, maybe around 50 cents. That's a loss of 26%. But my target would be somewhere like I'd look to double my money on something like this. Just maintaining that good risk to reward ratio on something like this. Again, for those of you watching me for the first time, welcome. I'm really happy to have you. This is the Verified AMA. My name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and I go live every single day that the markets are open from 12:30 to 1:15 to answer all of your questions, whatever they are, sports related, myself related, stocks, crypto, commodities related. Go ahead and give us a follow on YouTube. Give us a subscription on Verified Investing, and check out some of our more exclusive content. I'm going to drink some water, and then we're going to do something called our rapid fire round, a way that I like to end every single session. I'm going to be live for the next 10 minutes, but throw your questions in now. And in this rapid fire round, I'm going to do my best to answer all of the questions that I can. Ooh. Adam says that was great. Thanks. You're welcome. All right. Let's hop in. Derek says services. Day trading is 400. Swing equities is 150. Swing commodities 100. Lux Algo 50. 700 US dollars equals 100 Canadian. I'm from Canada. But could I talk to someone about building swing for 3 months? No problem, Derek. You could go contact support at Verified Investing, and I'm sure we'd potentially be able to work something out. But just send a message to support at Verified Investing. Okay? But we appreciate, you being a member of the Verified Investing community. A lot of times I talk to people about what I do, and it gives me a lot of pride. I've worked a lot of jobs previously, specifically in marketing. That mean a lot of TikToks, YouTube stuff. But being able to be a part of something that really makes me feel like I have a greater purpose in helping other people out there has been extremely fulfilling for me, and something I'm very, very lucky and fortunate to do. Are you excited that Shohei is pitching again? Yeah, I'm super excited Shohei is pitching. Actually, they're coming down to Tampa. Not this weekend, but the following weekend. So I'm going to go to 2 of those games, the Dodgers playing here in Tampa. So hopefully I get to see Shohei pitch. Of course, excited to see him hit a dinger. Never saw him live. Not a huge, I'm okay. Baseball's all right. I'll watch playoff baseball. I'm not going to watch regular season baseball. I'm sorry. I just can't. I go to a game and grab some hot dogs. Bring some beers with my friends, but that's it. All right. Stan Culp saying, my broker doesn't provide an option to go short, so I look out for these inverse ETFs when bearish. I'm currently CONI. Okay. How do you suggest navigating shorts using a 2 times bear ETF? So it's whenever you're using a leveraged ETF, it's dangerous, and I'll explain why. In fact, this is going to be a quintessential question. Okay, whenever you are trading an inverse ETF, there is depreciation, which means over time, the value of that inverse ETF or bullish ETF, if it's leveraged, will eventually go down forever. Now you might be thinking to yourself, why is that? It's because things like CONI are based off of Coinbase, right? But it's not a 1-to-1. For every 1% coin goes down, this will go up 2%, right? However, 2% on Coinbase at this price is not the same thing as 2% on CONI at another price. Just to demonstrate, let's demonstrate this really quickly. So let's look at Coinbase, right? Its all-time highs previously were here, right? In December 2024 and in June, basically, of this year. So if we take a look at, remember, 2024, December, and June of this year. So those were the highs. So where was it in December of 2024? The lowest we got, despite being at its highs, right, was over here on CONI. But when Coinbase was at the same price in June of this year, because of slippage, right, it's 41% lower, right? Because that resets every day, right? Coinbase's price and CONI's price resets every day. And if Coinbase moves up 5%, this is going to come down 10%. I hope that kind of makes sense. I know it's confusing, but yeah. Just be careful, right? Just that's what I would say. Just be careful, and you don't want to hold it for too long, unless it's at an amazing level. Martin says, any possible trade setups on IDR? Let me take a look, and I have 4 minutes left. If you guys have any final questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Again, you have to go to verifiedinvesting.com homepage to answer questions. Okay, Idaho Strategic Resources. This is a tiny company, $270 million, extremely small company. And the reason I mention that is because it's extremely risky. Not something that I would personally be comfortable trading, just because when I trade, I look for a couple things. I need to have an advantage, and I need to make sure that my trade setups have a high probability of working out. Not that they can't work out, but with the stock this small, these moves tend to be extremely large, 70% and essentially weak. So where will IDR bounce, or where could it bounce? Again, I'm not a trader of these type of stocks, but if I was forced to, if you locked me in a room and said, Lawton, you got to trade IDR, these are the levels that I would see support on IDR. You have a beautiful gap fill down here around 1678, approximately 12% lower, and a secondary gap fill down here around 30% lower at around $13.34. These are the two levels that I anticipate a potential bounce on IDR. But again, be careful, because if we look at the price action of IDR, it's up significantly from its lows in 2023, was up almost 400%. And because price action was down here previously, this isn't unfamiliar territory. This could easily come down below $1, falling significantly. Now, is it going to do that? No, it's likely not, right? It's likely not going to fall below $1, but could it? Absolutely. So just be careful. Whenever I trade something volatile like this, and I always tell you guys, it's important to have a plan, right? When you go into a trade, think about trading like driving a boat, taking a road trip. Let's say taking a road trip, right? It's important that you know what the plan is. You don't just get in the car and start driving, right? No, you look at a map, you look at a GPS, you set your destination, you set your target for a trade. And if you need to get gas, if you need a refill, you'll likely look for some stops along the way. Now, if you're driving like I was this morning and something happens to your car, like this morning, my tire exploded. My rear passenger tire just exploded out of nowhere on the bridge, and it was awful, and I spent all day dealing with it, right? What are you going to do? Are you going to keep going, right, when everything is telling you this isn't a good idea, I should stop? No. In the same way, you're going to set some stop losses. So for me, on something like IDR, let's say I get in here, I might stop out down here at this pivot low. This would be my stop out level where, okay, the car, there's something wrong with the car. I'm going to stop. I'm going to pull over, and I'm going to live to fight another day, not put myself or those around me in danger. Right. Let's take for my plan. Where's my target? Where could this realistically go? Oh, 65% higher. right? It's already trading at its all-time highs. So I would not look for anything higher than this previous high. But of course, you're able to do whatever you want. This is just what I think. And I'm just a guy. But anyways, guys, sorry. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, guys, my name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and I go live every single day that the markets are open from 1:15 to, from 12:30 to 1:15. Give us a follow on Twitter and YouTube. If you guys have any more questions, you can send them to me on Twitter at Lawton Investing. You can send me a DM. I'd be happy to answer your questions. If not, I'm going to be live tomorrow and the day after that, and the day after that as well at 12:30. So I hope you guys had an amazing day. Best of luck in the markets, guys, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Have a good one. Take it easy. Bye, guys.